You may have heard of something called the JADE Hook by now. If not, let me fill you in. This is an exploit that lets Spider-Man's pull range extend up to 150 meters. If you're wondering how this works, you're in good company. I and a handful of other Spidey-mains have been gatekeeping this tech for the past few weeks, but we've decided that it's time to let the truth out. Let me tell you the story of the JADE Hook. On October 13th, I received a message from Jane in Token's Discord server. Join voice chat if you can. All caps. Obviously I was interested. I joined Jane and Jolly in a voice channel, started watching the streamed gameplay, and this is what I saw. If you've seen clips of the JADE Hook before now, this will look different to how you're used to seeing it. Still, I thought the same thing that most of you thought when you first saw the tech. This is obviously some sort of hacked client, right? Wrong. This exploit runs completely in a vanilla install of Marvel Rivals with no external tools required. So what exactly is going on here? This exploit centers around a technique that we call buffering. When you buffer, we say you become a ghost. You're free to roam about in a buffered state, but most of what you do has no impact on the reality of the game. For example, buffering and then swinging over to punch this practice dummy has no effect, since your ghost form can't land melee attacks. To see why, let's look at this from an outside perspective. While you're in ghost form, the server and all other players in it still see your real body, which gets left behind. Jolly and Jane decided to call this a JAD tech. That's short for just a dream. Because while you're in this buffered state, most of what you do is just like a dream. It doesn't impact anyone else. It's as if it never happened. What's really happening here is that buffering desyncs your client from the server. For whatever reason, after you buffer, there's a period of time where either your movement inputs aren't being sent to the server or aren't being respected by the server. This causes your client to become desynced from the server, which leads to some very strange behavior. While some inputs get ignored while you're buffered, such as your movement, other inputs, like an uppercut, get respected by the server, but it's your real body that executes this on the server side. That's why a clip like this is possible. You buffer near the enemy, swing away, and you seem to uppercut them at an obscene distance. It's because your real body is actually still right next to them. After a few seconds of being desynced from the server, your client realizes that you're in the wrong position and it teleports you back, merging your ghost and your real body. At a glance, this seems useless for anything beyond making silly looking clips. If the effect is purely the client side bugging out, but all of your attacks still come from your real body, then there's no practical use here. Well, it turns out that there are some exceptions. If you're on a hero with ranged attacks like Punisher, the bullets don't necessarily spawn from your body. If you get too far away, it won't work, but if you're within about 5 meters of your actual body, you can shoot around corners. What's happening here is the client is telling the server that the Punisher should be shooting this target from around this corner, and even though the server knows better that the Punisher can't see that target, it lets the client get away with this. It lets it get away with sending this garbage content. Why on earth would it do this? There's actually a pretty good reason, and that's just so that the slight amount of lag that everyone's always going to have doesn't completely ruin your experience. Even when your ping is fairly low, there still is a delay between your client communicating with the server, and so you're going to get a little bit out of sync here and there. If you don't trust the client at all and you just go purely off the server side, then a client with a slight amount of lag who's peeking in and out of a corner is going to have some of the bullets that they fire that should on their end by all means land, just not connect for no reason, and they're not going to understand why. It feels more fair for all players if you give the clients just a little bit of leeway on these things. So the devs have said, as long as you say you're within 5 meters of where we think you are, we're just going to trust that any discrepancy is caused by lag and let you shoot whoever you say you can see. But once you get more than 5 meters away from where they think you are, that's where they put their foot down and say, no, we're sure that you can't be shooting from this angle. Either you're doing something nefarious or you're just lagging too much. So by buffering by a corner, just about any hero in the game can take a few steps out of cover without exposing their actual body. And if you think this is bad, it gets so much worse. We found 2 examples of abilities which do not respect this 5 meter rule. The one all of you are probably expecting to hear is Spider-Man's "Get Over Here." We call this a JADE Hook because it's a JAD tech plus Spider-Man's E. When fired, Spider-Man's client tells the server where the projectile should spawn and where it's facing, and the server just seems to trust this information, no matter what. If the Spider-Man player tells the server, "I want to spawn this projectile 200 meters away," the game is like, yeah, no problem. But if you're any more than 150 meters away, even though the pull connects, it doesn't cause any displacement. That random cap on its range is the only limiting factor here. And that premise that the server just lets Spider-Man spawn those projectiles wherever he wants is almost certainly how some of the hacks that we've seen in the past have been implemented. Except instead of buffering their position, moving their ghost, and manually firing a projectile, they'd be using an external tool to fabricate a request that they send to the server which just directly says, "Spawn it over here." While this exploit abuses the same premise as those hacks, we're doing it without the use of any external tools. All we need is the buffering technique. By this point, you have definitely noticed that I have not told you how we're buffering. And before I do, let me make this very clear. This is an exploit. Even though it doesn't use external tools, I can't find an explicit clause in the terms of service which says you're not allowed to do this. We have seen players banned in the past for exploiting other bugs which don't use external tools. There is a precedent that exploiting this could get you banned. And this exploit is especially risky because a NetEase employee who's in charge of checking reports of cheating almost certainly sees the same thing that the server sees, which looks like this. And this looks almost indistinguishable from the hacks. There are some subtle hints as to which is which, but the NetEase employee would have to know about this exploit and also be trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. Something tells me they're not going to do that. So with that warning out of the way that we're buffering is by tabbing in and out of the game. Specifically, when your game is running in full screen mode, there's a bit of jumpiness that happens when you tab back into it. That's the client realigning itself with the server. As far as we can tell, this only works in the latest few generations of NVIDIA graphics cards. Here's a list of what does and doesn't work amongst the graphics cards that we've tested. As you may be able to tell from the quality of my recordings in other videos, I do not have the fanciest graphics card on the market. I have got a GTX 1070, which means I cannot perform this exploit. All of the clips you've seen have come from Jane and Jolly, while I was sitting on the sidelines just helping out by theory crafting how the tech works. We knew that once the method for this exploit became public knowledge, it would only be a matter of time before it got patched. So we decided not to release it right away. Instead, while we had the chance, we came up with a plan. The first component of our plan was to get a bunch of clips of all the different applications of this tech, before letting the word out on exactly how it was done. There were a few main kinds of clips that we looked for. The most straightforward was a long pull which displaced an enemy healer deep into your own team's backline. This is by far the easiest way to use the JADE Hook, and it's quite effective if your team is paying any amount of attention. If you want to pull your target into a death pit, it starts getting a little bit more complicated. Your real body is still subject to the laws of gravity while you're buffered, so swinging above a pit, buffering, and doing a JADE Hook midair is pretty much off the cards. There are a few maps which have pits between a walkable area and the space where your opponents will be playing from, with a reasonably clear line of sight. These conditions allow for a JADE pull into a pit, much like the simple noob pull method that you'd use on the Super Soldier Factory map, just on a much larger scale. But not every map has a pit like this. A somewhat inconsistent but highly versatile method involves a trick that we initially thought was a wall bounce, but on further investigation seems to be more closely related to an Ifoma flip or a super jump. We're not entirely sure why, but if you double jump and web zip while you're buffered, there's a chance that you just get flown off into space. If you set up for a buffer near a death pit, and ideally use some of the map geometry to limit the directions that you could be thrown in, then use some double jumps while you're approaching your target, there's a chance that your real body gets flung above the pit before you do the pull, and this method can theoretically let you get a kill on any map with a pit if you're lucky enough. I mentioned before that Spider-Man's Get Over Here is not the only exception to the 5-meter rule. The other one is arguably even more ridiculous, and that is Black Panther's dash. Remember how they fixed no-regs a while ago? Yeah, I think they did it by just trusting the Black Panther client all the time, which means Panther's dash is JAD-techable. Is this practical and broken? No, not at all. Since Panther's spears still follow the 5-meter rule, the only application ends up being a double spear, double dash combo, and those spears have to be thrown from range, assuming your body is somewhat hidden away. And if they get any healing or you miss anything, there is no follow-up, you just teleport back out. I mean, it's kind of broken, but it's not actually that easy to get away with. So obviously we farmed up all of the clips that we wanted. That's phase 1 of the plan. Phase 2 was, well, if we're gatekeeping this tech anyways, we may as well have some fun with it. We took clips of the tech to a bunch of different Discord servers, DMs, live streams, and we decided to show off what we were doing without giving our methods away by showing the buffering or the ghost's point of view. If you saw a JADE Hook before this video, this is what you saw. The reactions that we got were a ton of fun.
Literally, it's just cheating.
Wait, that's so... He did that from so far away. Bro's hacking, there's no way.
The highlight for me was when we were chatting with Matchu in his stream and he was trying to figure out how the exploit worked. And he actually hit the nail right on the head. He just didn't know how we were buffering to set up the tech in the first place.
Like, he is not actually here right now. They figure out a way to spoof where the positioning of Spider-Man is. Oh. And then he's just going for a random pull, like right here. Like, you see it? Like he's just walking up to them.
The question of how to do it, you were talking about throttling the Wi-Fi. It is so much stupider than that. The trick, you tab out of the game, and then you tab back into the game.
Hold up. Now you have to be joking. So I can just like sit here and just... What the? Okay. What? Oh. Wait, you have so much time to do it.
Yeah.
Wait, this is... Wait, that's so
Yeah, when
stupid.
people were being like, oh, this is probably pretty difficult. Like, either people thought you had to aim it or it was a difficult set of inputs or something like that. And it's like, no, this is like trivially easy. Like,
it is so... You have so much time to do it. If you have any knowledge on Spider-Man whatsoever, you are going to be able to do this so consistently.
so that's pretty much the extent of the exploit. Is it irresponsible of me to tell everyone how to do this? Slightly, yes. Which is why, as I post this video, I'm also submitting a ticket with Netties telling them about this bug and how I recommend they fix it. Depending on how seriously they take my ticket, if you must do this, and you shouldn't, but if you must, I predict you've got about 12 to 48 hours before this gets patched. But I'm telling you, really, don't do this and don't get mad at me if you do and you get banned. And if you do it anyway, don't like spam it in ranked or whatever. I'm not out here trying to become public enemy #1. Anyway, that's all I've really got for you. I've got another video that's a little bit more normal coming out in a couple of days. So like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz, and I'll see you shortly. Cheers.